I mean, so you guys are based in, whereabouts are you guys based?
I'm in North Carolina, so I'm East Coast U.S.
Are you familiar with the geography of the
Kansas.
United States? Because you said Sydney.
not
I'm familiar with the city. I have no idea where, like, on the map it is. It's a big island. It's the size of the U.S.
Massive.
It's mostly desert. That's all I know. And so it's like, oh, we're in over here. It's like, I don't know what that means.
So you've got coastlines, right? Yeah, you've got coastlines. So
yeah, we do too.
We're on the east coast of the big island, right?
Okay.
Sort of 3/4 down on the east coast. So
perfect. See, there you go.
You are correct. It's quite deserty in the middle. Is that a word? It's a word now. So most of the population sits on both coasts, realistically.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, guys,
Very cool.
before we
I'm in the mountains.
You're in the mountains, okay.
David's in the flatlands.
And you're both shop owners as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There you go. Listen, guys, before we get any further in, I just want to make sure we're not all wearing pants, please.
No, listen, this is my shop too. I'm actually still at work. And here in the US, we don't even wear pants to work. Okay. My staff finds it extremely offensive. They have a real problem with it. But I feel good about it.
I want to know,
I've been trying to adopt
who the guest was that exposed themselves. Do we know them? Are they?
I think we're recording.
I don't edit these things. What are you talking about? I don't edit these things.
Dude, so listen, David will have to cut this whole part out, okay?
No.
This can't get
We can discuss it post. Yeah.
After the recording, we'll tell the story after the recording.
Yes, I'll tell the whole story. You'll watch David turn red. It's awesome.
That's good. Well, you're dealing with Aussies, so there's really no filter here. So,
how dare you, Pete? We are super.
Y'all will fit in perfectly.
Peter, we are super professional, actually. And to answer your question, no, I'm not wearing pants.
I actually had a couple of questions about you guys, actually.
Of course.
If I can fire away, we're quite sort of fanboys of the ASOG network. Is that what you'd sort of acronym yourselves, ASOG?
Yeah. We've got a bigger brand now, right? We're the Changing the Industry podcast now, and then we're still part of ASOG. ASOG's a 501c3 designed to help shop owners, right? Like, because man, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
And so we start off as the ASOG podcast, and we realized that a lot of people weren't going to know what that meant, right? Like ASOG, what does that mean? Well, it was Auto Shop Owners Group. And then it slowly grew into something more because we had a lot of technicians who were following us. We had a lot of service advisors who were following us, a lot of people from outside of that owner realm. And we thought, we've got to make sure they can hear this message too, right? Because we want to improve it for everybody. We want things to get better. And so that's kind of where it started at, Yeah,
that sounds fantastic, actually. Not too dissimilar to how the Garage Network started, but I'm just intrigued because we do see a lot of interaction on the page there, and it seems to be quite a large following. How long have you guys been going for?
Gosh, David, when did we start? It was like right at the beginning of the pandemic, wasn't it?
It was in September 2020 is when we started the podcast. The Facebook group's been around since, 18? Yeah.
No, it seems to have quite a large following. It's good. Kudos to you. Building such a good network of pretty strong technicians, actually. So, it seems that way from the outside. So there's a bit of feedback for you.
Right,
it's all a facade.
Well, thank you so much.
Incompetent over here. We don't know what we're doing.
Everyone's actually a dick.
That's it too. And none of them are wearing pants.
Everyone's walking around.
What have you started?
What's going on?
What have you started? Yeah. Next name change, a Pat in the Society or something.
I'm quite certain that every country is going to have the same issues, and I wanted to ask you guys what common threads you guys are seeing with your shop owners in general. Are there any challenges in your industry that you guys face? We're facing a couple at the moment. So parts shortages is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Skill shortage is another. And I just wanted to sort of ask you guys if, we sort of feel that we're a little bit far removed being where we are in Australia, but I'm certain that you guys face the same issues that we face.
Yeah. Me personally, right? Like we went through a number of part shortages, and I see some posts from you guys and see some posts from other countries where it is hard to get certain parts, right? And it's extremely difficult to get them imported if that's what's required. And so I could not imagine that just for the challenges that we have here locally, and have the dealer networks that we have. It's almost impossible to get some parts, and it seems like they're phasing out newer vehicle parts much sooner than they ever have before. They're on back order.
Some of the part shortages COVID related or supply chain issue related there?
Look, we're getting a lot of the blame COVID still, but I think that on our end, I think we just don't have those relationships with manufacturers. So I think like when we talk about parts shortages, personally, I think Pete means like if we want to try and get something from a dealer as a genuine part, man, it's number one, we have a lot of dealers that actually won't sell to trade anymore. That's a couple of them actually. Yeah, so they've actually made it impossible. Like my local, I would say our equivalent to, let's say, GM, I as a repair shop cannot go and buy from their store. As in, I've tried to order a part. It's like, oh no, you can't buy from him. Well, okay, well then just put it as a regular, walk-in. Put it for me as a walk-in because I need the part. I'm not going to drive an hour to go, and I can't wait all day for this part, right? And it's, well, no, because we know you've got a trade account, so you're going to have to go through a headquarters. Don't give me my 3% discount because they're giving us 3% trade rate. Don't give me the 3%. I'll just come in as Costa and just we know you've got a trade account. You're going to have to go through headquarters, which is a mission. An hour on the phone.
Why? Like, what's the logic behind that?
Mate, I think a lot of it. My understanding of it is just the sheer shortage of bums in chairs. So we're finding it very hard to get staff in general. So unemployment rate for us is actually very, very low here at the moment. So we're finding it very hard to get staff. And I think that it's probably best for the dealers to hold on to their supply and use it for their own repair rather than supply to the trade. So, yeah, despite the fact that
we have something really similar here with specific manufacturers. So you look at a Tesla, but they're getting in trouble right now because Tesla's not freely sharing of information like they're supposed to. And if you need to buy something from Tesla, you have to register with them as a collision shop, I think is what it was. And you have to jump through all these hoops just to be able to buy genuine Tesla parts because they were trying to keep everything in-house, everything. Every other manufacturer realizes that we don't have the dealer network to service all these vehicles, which is why these are the same manufacturers 100%. In your country. It's like you guys, it's not like you don't have GM and you don't have Ford. You see what I'm saying? So you guys have the same manufacturers who realize in the US, we need the independent repair shop because we want to sell cars. That's what we're in business to do. So we're not going to sell cars if there's nobody to fix them. And we don't have the dealer network that's wide enough and as well staffed as it should be to be able to handle all the repairs necessary. Yeah. So we have to like, there's a little bit of give and take there with the independent repair shops, but they need that. They need us.
There's 70% of the repairs. Actually, I think it's 72 right now. 72% of all repairs to automobiles nationwide are done in independent repair facilities here.
That's
right?
An interesting
and
stat.
so, right. And we've got organizations, there's ETI, the Equipment and Tool Institute, right? And they build connections between the manufacturers, the tool companies, and independent repair shops or the aftermarket as you know it, right? And so they're up there saying like, hey, we have to maintain these connections. Yeah. We have to make sure that you're taking care of them and they're taking care of you.
100%.
And so that's something we've seen more and more. And there's a lot of folks, I think if Mario, for instance, heard this, Mario and I were just having a conversation the other day, and he's like, I don't think the dealers are trying as hard as you think they are to help us. Man, I could not imagine being in a situation like you guys are. That's crazy.
Yeah, we feel
gotta
that
remember
they're
as
sort of
well.
not doing as much as what they should be.
Yeah. But you got to
Right.
also remember, for us, like this whole right to repair and Information Acts and all this stuff, we only just got that legislated under a year ago. So pre 8 months ago, we could not log in and get a wiring diagram from the manufacturer. We actually could not access any information at all, full stop. It wasn't there. There was maybe 2 participating brands, which was Toyota and Holden, which is like a type of GM.
Yeah.
Short of that, we were absolutely stuck by going, circumventing, using VPNs, going through international logins and all this wacky stuff, especially when we're programming. It was impossible because then you're relying on, backdoored from Russia, information. Like it was pretty crazy. So I think a lot of these changes I have felt from my business point of view is, since we've gotten that legislation passed and now we legally can have access to the information, it's like they've said, well, okay, fine. Since you can legally get the information, we'll find other hurdles for you. That's
So
why I felt that recently.
I think I think that's well established enough in the U.S. that if a manufacturer tries some of those shenanigans, not that I think they're trying to secure certain aspects of access, not necessarily create barriers, but definitely secure who is getting access to what.
Yeah.
What's that thing called, Lucas? I don't know about this stuff. They tell me to pay the bill and the $50 for this and $50 for that, and you just pay. Well, auto auth or something like that you have to register.
Yeah, look, we have a similar thing that's just been
right.
Yeah.
And you've got NASTIF too, but I think NASTIF is more of a in favor of the independents than anything. It's making sure that access can't be taken away, because what they're doing is they're saying, hey, like, you can make every argument you want, but we know these people have had background checks. Yeah. We know they're an actual business. Yeah. We know that they have insurance. We're bonded under them to protect you, the manufacturer, to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so,
how are you guys getting it's a
pretty complex system.
So this is where, NASTIF, I believe it might actually be the same company, or at least they copied a lot of their platform. We've got an organization called Azra, which is a similar thing. And they've just started adopting, the same, like you were saying, Lucas, they do all the background check, you log in, you have that account, Azra account. And then you can become a VSP, so like a security person, vehicle security person, which again is just more background checks, you do police checks and all that sort of jazz. Now that's hasn't even rolled out yet. So, back pre us getting the legislation, most workshops had a personal relationship with a person inside of a dealership. And if they needed a security code, it'd be here's a security code. Yeah, here's a couple cases of beer and we'll take that security code. Since the legislation's passed, it's been, well, no, we can't do that anymore because now it's super strict. So you need to go through VSP. Right. Problem is, VSP wasn't ready. It's still not ready. So right now, there's still people doing it ways that are, long story short, cars have to get fixed. So we find ways to do it, right? You've got to get the car out the door and you work it out. Is that the right answer? That's the right answer. Yeah. So you get the car out the door, and it gets fixed and it gets sorted, but it just makes it a little bit more difficult. But look, there is, the words and the traps are that's ready to go and it's going to be much easier once it's all adopted. But I think it's also a learning curve. Like we had the most recent one was you guys can't have the access to information because none of you guys are EV certified, and we can't separate our EV information from our regular information. So because we don't want you guys to die, we can't give it to you. So
what in the world?
Yeah,
that is insane.
You're in the situation here where you can't get vehicle information, or you're having to get it like secondhand, sketchy through Chinese or Russian access. So you've got that going on. You can't get parts because nobody will release parts to you. So that should dissuade every backyard mechanic from working on a car. Like, I don't have the relationships to get the parts, and I can't get the vehicle and service information. So why am I even going to try? Meaning that the people that have shops should be charging astronomical rates to work on vehicles because you can work on them. Is that the case?
We're working on it. We're working.
Yeah,
on
we
it.
are working on that portion. Yeah, but you know what? That is going to be the slogan, Pete. I think I'm going to just cut that section out and literally going to have a rerun in the waiting room. Just rerun. So the thing is, we still have pretty good access to like aftermarket parts, and a lot of these aftermarket parts now are from big players. Like all of our electrical stuff, although it's aftermarket, 90% of it's Bosch. So you can sort of trust that it's going to be a decent brand, a decent product going into the car. So it always is 90% of the time that there's another solutions, which again, like I said earlier, it's always about getting that car fixed in a timely manner. Like I'll give you a straight up example. We had a ML63 a few weeks back where dealer was quoting anywhere from 4 to 18 weeks for a shock absorber. It's like, well, okay, but they're available. Yeah, they are. Okay. Why 18 weeks? I don't understand. But they just don't give you a real accurate answer. That's the problem. So then how do you then convey that message to a customer without sounding like a dick as well? Like, I promise you I want the car at the door. I can't store your car for 18 weeks,
Yeah.
But we do have access to data via conventional methods. Do you guys have companies like Auto Data and those sort of?
Yeah.
I suppose
we've
data.
got all data.
So we do have conventional access
like
to
Mitchell,
that. So Mitchell, very similar. So we do have access to data. It's just specific data that you might require from the dealer that we're finding it very hard, and it's a slow burn for us at the moment because it's only really quite new that it's rolled out. But in regards to what you were saying with our charge out rates and should we be charging more, the answer is probably yes, we should. And we are working towards that, I think, as an industry as a whole to try to uplift capability. And that's probably partly why, or mostly why, the Garage Network actually exists, is to try to bring these techs together and uplift capability together, united, and try to stamp out a little bit of the, $99 service come in the door. You guys have actually got it even worse. You've got from what I've noticed, you guys have got players that are offering $28, $29 services and shit like that. What is that?
Well, here in the free states of America, anybody with a wrench can become a mechanic and open up a shop. They literally just throw a post on Facebook and say, "Hey, I'm working on cars now," and then that's it.
Wild.
They're now
so
you
wacky.
as a shop with a building and insurance and good wages for your employees and the latest equipment and on and on and on. You've got all this overhead.
Yeah.
So you're charging whatever you need to charge, plus you're marking up the parts and you're trying to present value. The guy down the street is installing that same part that you charge $1,000 for US, and they're doing it for half. And the customer, this is the entire crux of the matter. The customer, in their minds, it's the same thing. It's like, well, hold on now. That is not the same thing. That person doesn't have service information. I do. So they don't know that those two bolts that that's holding up the gas tank are not reusable. I've got service information. I know. So part of my quote was replacement for those two bolts. So the straps don't fall out and the tank doesn't come off the car and everybody dies. They don't know that. They just slap that sucker in and you're going down the road. Now the problem is, like, half the time nothing happens. The other half, something does happen, but that guy's now gone because he was just a Facebook post. That was the business.
Yeah. That's it.
How are you guys, or is there a way that you guys are moving toward educating these customers that it's not apples for apples that they're comparing?
Yeah, one customer at a time. It's taking forever. We have 330 million people here.
Isn't it?
Right. And every single day it's having that conversation. And unfortunately, what they want to hear often wins. Right? Let's be real about it. Is that client coming through the door that says, "Hey, I really don't have the money for this. I really, and what sucks is they'll go buy that 70-inch TV and it doesn't even register a question in their mind. They'll go buy that sucker and stick it up on the wall. They won't even ask. They won't look at the price somewhere else. They'll stick that sucker on the wall, and that's the TV I've got, right? And I ask the people all the time, like, you know, would you go out and would you buy the cheapest 13-inch gray or like grayscale TV, black and white, and it's just got antennas and it doesn't have cable on the back? Would you buy that? And they're like, no. I want a nice, high quality TV. I'm like, why would you want to go to the equivalent of a repair shop that provides that? Yeah. Well, I just want my car fixed and he's cheap. Dude, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. You're getting what you're paying for. Yeah. There's a huge difference. And you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm starting to wonder if consumers even care.
But conversely, though, I'm imagining you guys have customers on the other end of the scale which say, hey, Lucas, hey, David, just fix the car. You know, just send me the bill. So we've got either end of the scale as well. And over the years, we've built in quite a strong client base that just drop the car off, drop the keys, Pete, do what it needs, send me the bill. Obviously, we just don't do what it needs because they need to know. So we do contact them through the course of the job. There are multiple touch points that we speak to them at, but typically it's never an issue. It's only, I suppose, maybe the small 1 to 2% of clients that might come through who might be price sensitive or might not want that higher quality job that you're offering, and they're probably not the ones that we want anyway.
Well, you know what I've learned in my shop is that when I had the low rates, those were the guys coming through 100%. The door, right? And as I've raised my prices and my prices came in line with the rest of the industry, most of those people that were just absolute flat don't come in anymore.
The industry. Not with the rest of the industry.
And
the rest of the industry, they don't know what they're doing.
End, I like it, David. There you go.
Yeah. You know what?
The Ratchet and Wrench survey. Do you guys get Ratchet and Wrench down there?
No.
What's that?
So it's a magazine for the industry. They do a survey every year, and they get thousands of respondents, shop owners, technicians, and they'll put out information like what's the average repair order for the industry. You know, over 4,000 people respond, and this is what it is, and it's under $300.
$7, yeah.
And it's really low, and you're like, I can operate on $300 ARO, but they are.
No,
that's the average. That's the problem. That's the average. Really interesting. So half of everybody's running lower.
Yeah, wow.
You guys have got some really, really good metrics that I've noticed a lot of people are putting up on their posts and all the acronyms, and I'm slowly starting to get onto what they all mean and what they are, or what you guys track. And it's typically what we track as well. But like your ARO, I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? ARO, you know? But it's obviously average repair order, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a few others on there. And one thing that sort of got me, because we actually don't operate in this way, is the way you pay your staff. And you can pay them in two ways. You can either pay them on a flat, is it a flat rate or...
Wow, you're telling me there's an entire country that doesn't deal with flat rate? You guys don't do flat rate?
So when you say flat rate, what's flat rate is I pay you your hourly rate, and that's that. Is that right?
So
no. Oh, it's way worse than that.
So it'll if the job if you pull up a service information that says that job is 3 hours, then you pay that technician 3 hours of whatever negotiated pay rate is. So if it's $25 an hour, you're going to pay them for those 3 hours. You're going to pay them $75. That's it. If it takes them 6 hours to do the job, you're paying them $75. If it takes them an hour to do the job, you're paying them $75. Now, the way that the shops start to make really good money is when every single job is being billed out at 3 hours, but it's taking the technician 2. Because the technician just got really good at doing these jobs, these 3 hour jobs in 2 hours. So now they're getting paid for 3 hours worth of work at $75. The shop is collecting 3 hours worth of pay, but the cars are coming in and out very quickly because they're able to pack in more cars in the same amount of time. That's how it works.
Is that a double-edged sword to a certain degree for maybe the shop owner seems to win irrespective, but the technician could potentially fall short if he gets a couple of curly ones, or
the difficulty comes in where the shop owner can lose is if they lose in quality, because the technician
100%.
wants to beat their time,
Yeah.
and in order to do that, they start to cut corners because they want to get in under that 3-hour mark, and so they'll do whatever. Now, some shop owners, they don't care. The car comes in, is it run? Yeah. Check engine lights off. Yup. Okay, great. They charge the customer, and out the door they go. Don't ask, don't tell. And it's not till the car comes back, which is usually after the technicians quit. Then the car comes back, and all of a sudden, you got a line of cars that Technician Timmy worked on, and Technician Timmy got fired 2 weeks ago. Now you realize that the Technician Timmy hasn't been installing parts properly, like he should have, because he's been cutting time in order to hit that flat rate. That's where the shop owner can lose. But yeah, the technician ends up taking the brunt of it. And here's the other thing, our biggest problem with it is that that pay scale works really well when it's straight R&R. You're talking ball joints, steering and suspension, brakes, some gaskets, some
just very, very routine stuff.
Yeah, very routine
Rhythmic.
stuff,
Yeah.
and it pays really well if the technician's working on the same line. So all they work on is Holden's. That's it. And they just this one make of Holden, they get really fast at diagnosing the car, at fixing this. So in those particular situations, it works really well. For an independent repair shop that works on everything, it's just doing brakes, steering, suspension, very light diagnostics, but swapping in parts all day long. That's what it incentivizes. So that's what shops turn into. So a shop that deals in diagnostic work, that is doing ADAS calibrations, that doing programming, that's refreshing, refurbishing modules that would normally have to be thrown away. They're going in and they're doing EEPROM work to use the module again. Shops like that aren't churning the cars quickly. And in those shops, they're more craftsmen than they are just factory workers. And that's the comparison I typically tend to make. It's one's a factory worker, one is not. The factory worker shops they're fine, but they play flat rate and they specialize in a certain kind of work. Does that make sense?
So the other way that they're paid is, so what's the other way that they're paid? So you got a flat rate and then you got an hourly.
You can pay hourly or we
Or
pay
salary.
salary. So salary is they get a set yearly fee, and we pay them by the year. Every single week you get a cut of it.
More fair, doesn't it? You know?
Oh yeah. Well, and here's the thing, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, but the reality is flat rate is an excuse for poor management, right? In a lot of ways, flat rate is putting the business
Don't piss
management
everybody
on
off. Can
autopilot.
Can be.
I know, right?
Well, secretly,
We've got to be politically correct here.
Yeah.
Not all of them.
simply the
Right, but
explanation
it
stressed
does.
me
It
out.
puts the business management on autopilot, right? In a lot of ways, it's hey, if you don't turn, we're at least not losing something on you in a major way right now. And so, here's the thing: is think about that. We're people first, right? And especially in independent shops, I think most of the independent shops are thinking people first. And so, dude has a hard time at home. He has a family member that passes away. What's going to happen to his hours? They're going to go down. Yeah. Right? Like it's not taking care of the person first. It's primarily focused on dollar bills.
So you're building a pretty average team culture with your team if you're going to run the shop like that.
You'd be surprised. There are technicians that's what they prefer because they make a lot of money.
Really?
Say, I'm really good at putting in suspension parts and gaskets and just cycling through cars very quickly. That's what I'm really good at. I don't want to get paid salary because it's going to limit how much money I can make because I can turn these hours quickly. And those technicians end up at flat rate shops, and flat rate shops, they can have a great culture and everybody's happy and they're doing cookouts and they're going on retreats and they're doing the whole rigmarole. It works just fine for them. For us, it's not. It's a pace that we can't keep up. It's just, it seems too stressful. I don't like to do that much work. I don't want to do all that nonsense. Do you guys not have flat rate or anything like it down there?
I only ever heard of it. We did a thing with Sean Tipping a little while back, and he was just talking about like, what do you mean? I've never heard of that before, and explained it. I think I instantly got stressed out just at the thought of all in my head. I'm like, but what about quality control? But then what if the tech's working and someone who needs a hand? And like, I don't get, how do they juggle? You know, do they stop their job to help their fellow person hold this while I do this? Like, how do you juggle that?
Sometimes they do.
We do have independent guys who might be mobile that will contract to you, but that's a very similar scenario where you get caught out. So who warrants the job if that's the case? And then trying to get him back to warrant the job might be an issue as well, you know, because he's got his own work and, you know, he sort of falls by the wayside. But yeah, look, I think it's a bit, I'd never heard of it before. I wanted to clarify. I think salary or hourly is probably a little bit more fair for both parties, you know. Just sounds like a better way to run your shop.
What do you guys
can I just ask?
Absolutely.
Always
you guys do hourly or salary?
So we're all salary. Well, all of my staff are on salary package, and they're all paid quite well, despite the fact that a lot of people sort of say that mechanics are paid poorly in our industry. None of mine are. So I don't know where.
And here's the other thing too. Like Lucas was throwing out some numbers out there. Lucas, weren't you pulling up the fact that, hey, this is the poverty rate in the U.S. is this dollar amount? Yeah. Technicians, like, on average make this dollar amount. Like, you guys aren't even anywhere near quote unquote underpaid just from averages. Right. And certainly not anybody in our stores.
Right. And I think a lot of it comes back to they feel like, well, I've got to buy these tools. Yeah. Right. And I have to, you know, I'm putting all of this training, I'm putting all of this effort in. You know, there are definitely techs that are underpaid. There's zero doubt about that. But I think that in the States, it's probably lower of an average that are underpaid than we think there is. Right. And especially when you take into account that we've got some guys coming in. Right. We've got some guys starting out. You know, I've got some apprentices in here and they're, you know, $18 an hour, 17, 18, 19, 20, right? Just starting out. And that's, listen, if you can go into a shop and you can get with no tools, with no nothing, and you can start at $17 to $18 an hour and the shop's going to buy your tools and they're going to give you,
access to training,
vision and dental benefits and all the training you could ever want, put you through an apprenticeship program with a guaranteed wage scale. Yeah, nice. Right? Like $17 an hour is not that bad starting out.
Well, I think
I think that sometimes we sway our perspective of that because people want more money.
Well, it begs the question then, if you're being underpaid, why are you being underpaid? And maybe the onus needs to go on the technician to say, well, you know what, maybe I'm not as good, or maybe I need to be trained better, or maybe I need to produce more output, or, you know, there could be a reason as to why. You know, a lot of the guys that seem to complain that we've seen don't do anything about fixing it for themselves. Yeah, you know. Yeah. So it's the victim mentality. You know.
You're exactly right, and you know, I've got a good friend, and I've talked to him a little bit about the fact that I may mention this on some of the podcasts, right? But we had a talk a while back, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, listen, I was fired." And I said, "Okay, why were you fired?" And he said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to do an exit interview. Can you call him and say, hey, we need to do an exit interview?" And we started talking about it, and we were talking through some of the things, and I asked very blunt, very direct questions. And I said, you know, I got to be honest with you. You've heard us talk a lot about toxic technicians and how they can affect the business. They can affect everybody else in there. I said, can you be honest with yourself and be honest with me? Do you think maybe it's possible you'd become toxic in this shop? And he said, I never thought that would be me, but you're right. Yeah, wow. And then we start talking about some of the other things that happen. And as we dig in, it turns out that neither party had their expectations met. Now, look, I'm going to wholly 100% blame the shop owner for this, because the shop owner didn't set expectations. Yeah. He didn't say, I want you to be able to accomplish this. I want you to do this in this number of hours, or I want you to do this kind of work and this kind of training. And here's how I envision this going, right? He didn't say anything. He didn't do anything. He just said, come in and fix cars. Yeah. And so now what does the technician do? The technician starts and he's like, well, I thought I was fixing cars, and he's pulling the scope out and he's doing testing and he's doing all this stuff. And the owner never came back and said, hey, listen, the time it's taking you to scope and do all this stuff, you could have easily looked and seen that's a problem right there and fixed this car and shipped it out. And so all of a sudden we get into this greater and greater divide. They're going in different directions because they both have different expectations of what fixing the car is, of what I should expect at the end of the week, what I should expect at the end of the day, what my production should look like. Right. And so is it that more that we need to work on setting these expectations with one another?
Yeah, look, I definitely think that's
absolutely 100%
super important thing. Making sure you set and manage these expectations through in very similar way to how you would set and manage expectations for a customer when they bring their vehicle in. If they've got a diagnostic job that you need to do, you need to definitely, I think, set and manage expectations with your staff as well. It needs to be clear cut from the outset. Because they'll do, so from my experience, they will do what they feel is the right thing to do, but it might not necessarily be what you'd like them to do, you know? So they're not doing anything wrong. It's just not to your expectation. And if you haven't said anything or set that expectation, it's very difficult. And like you're right there, Lewis, the divide becomes big because they're thinking they're doing the correct thing or what they feel is the right thing, but it might not necessarily be the expectation that the actual shop owner has. And I think, go for it.
Well, it resonates with me, right? Because I don't mind to tell personal stories, right? I tell them all the time. But a few years back, we had just had our second child. And I had it in my head that my wife was going to come back to work. She does the bookkeeping. She does all of that stuff, right? And I had it in my head. She was going to come back. And I had this vision in my head of what it was going to look like and the things she was going to take care of, the things I was going to take care of. And man, we had some like fights over this. Like she was getting ready to, like I was about to not exist anymore. She was going to take me out, you know, I was going to wake up dead one day. And so, as this progresses, I said to my business coach at the time, I said, I am really frustrated because she's not doing what I want her to do. And he kind of laughed at me and he's like, hey, he said, frustration always comes from unmet expectations. But he said, I'm going to warn you about something. And I said, what's that? He said, you need to talk to her about what your expectations are. But he said, I'm going to give you a piece of advice that is absolutely pivotal. He said, you need to write it down on a sheet of paper and read it a few times before you go and tell her that's your expectation. Right. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, they may not be realistic. He's like, you may be asking her to do something that she's not capable of, or it may not be realistic for her to do. It may not be the right thing. So write them down and read them first. And I write them down. I've got like this whole notepad, top to bottom, line by line by line. I'm like, oh shit, that's not realistic. Oh shit, that's not realistic either. Oh hell, I better not ask her to do that. You know what I mean? And like, so at the end of it, I think that if we don't write it down and put that on paper first, we may not realize that our expectations are unrealistic, And I think, especially for technicians, right? I come to work in the morning and one of my things is I plan my day out, right? And as the expediter in the shop, I'm laying all this work out and I'm saying, okay, Mrs. Smith needs to go. Bob needs to go. This client needs to go. We've promised this. We've promised that. We've promised all this work, right? And I'm laying it out and I'm putting it down on the sheet. And I'm like, okay, I need you to get all this done. And I never look at the hours that it takes to actually do that, right? And so all of a sudden, when I take it and I lay it out and I'm like, okay, Terry needs to do this job, and this job, that's 16 hours. Right? If everything goes well, that's 16 hours. Is it possible for him to do that? And I think owners, they're so focused on serving the client. They're so focused on getting the dollars in the door because they got to pay the bills. They can lose sight of what reality is. Does that make 100%. Sense?
Absolutely. I think we've all fallen in that trap of then getting frustrated because the job's not at the door, but then you actually look at oh, wait a minute, that's actually not even possible over 3 days, let alone one. So absolutely guilty of that. I tell you
exactly.
What. Yeah.
Yeah, putting a little bit of excess pressure on the tech because I do understand what you mean. You sort of walk out from the office potentially and look and go, oh, John, how are you going with that? Oh, mate, yeah, look, I'm getting stuck in. Is it finished yet? No, it's a very long job, And you, like you said, as a shop owner, you want the outcome for the customer. Sometimes you feel that, sometimes you fail to realise that you've got techs on board as well that are part and parcel of your team.
You know the problem, Pete, though, in that situation, you start to sound like, because both Pete and my dad were both mechanics as well. we're both techs, and we've fallen the trap of, when I was doing them, this would have been 3 hours. It's like, in the 1976 on your Buick point-driven distributor took you 1 hour. Yeah, great, Dad. You know,
I used to hear these ones like, oh man, I used to pull those gearboxes out with my dick. Easy.
Yeah.
You know? Like gearboxes now are 5 times the weight, you know?
You mean you still don't?
Well, you know, look, we've got to where we make a joke in the shop, right? And Eric gets the brunt of all the jokes. But, you know, the deal is that I'll walk in and he'll like have just pulled a car in. And the first thing I always say to Eric is, are you done? What's taking so long? Right. And I'm just serious as can be. And he just like looks at me. So like I go to everybody and do that just to point out that like, hey, I recognize I'm really bad to do this. Ignore me. You know?
So are you on the workshop floor to a degree, Lucas, and David for that matter? I know, David, you said you don't like really working. None of us do. So,
listen, you know what David does all day long?
I just don't do it.
Listen, I never could understand what it was David actually did in his shop. And one of his service advisors one time, she came over and she's like, hey, you keep asking about like why all this is going on in our shop and why nothing's getting done. And she says, here, look. And she turns this phone around and it's a video of David sitting there watching YouTube, cackling, laughing, and she's like videotaping him for like 5 minutes. And he's like, what are you doing? Get back to work.
It's research. It's okay.
Research. That's exactly right.
Yeah. If you knew what the video was, you would wonder what he's researching, but you know.
Yeah,
can you send it to Costa and I as well, please?
We just rewatched it at the meeting too. I know exactly what video you're talking about. We just rewatched it. I'm like, this is funny, and I put it up on the screen.
I will find the video for you of him watching it and laughing. That will just, I work in the shop a little bit, not nearly as much as I used to. And the real reason is because, man, I got to be honest, like there came a day and a time when I had to say, I need to hire people better than me. I need to find people that are more capable than me. And so if I get in their way, that's all I'm being is in their way. There are certain jobs that I'm really good at that I've spent a lot of years learning how to do. And there are times that if they get into a bind on a diagnostic situation, I will step in and say, hey, let me be the 30,000 foot view and give you a different perspective. Let me ask you some questions. Really, my role in the shop is that of the expediter. I'm planning the morning out. Everything's laid out on a schedule. I'm making a list. We're making a list of who we need to call, who's working on what. We're organizing the keys. We're making sure the estimates are built. And now I'm walking through the shop every hour. Hey, do you need anything? Do you need parts? Is everything going good? Is something wrong? And I'm following up with that and driving the work through the shop in that way. Because a lot of shops, man, they want to be productive, but the owners in here meddling and we've heard them called seagull managers, right? They come in and eat your lunch and shit everywhere and fly off. And so I don't want to be that, but I also want to make sure they're supported. And a lot of shops, man, they don't have the parts they need. They don't have the clarification or the information they need until that car's been on the rack for 45 minutes, an hour. And they forgot to go in and tell the advisor something, or the advisor's been busy and they haven't been able to say something. My position of running around and solving those small problems means work moves through the shop much faster.
So do you call that position workshop controller?
I call it an expediter. It was David's idea to name it that. So that's just what I've always called it. In shopware, there's a tab called an expediter. That's why I came up with it. But I mean, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah. So we, so what I've noticed there's a bit of a disconnect between the way you guys do things and the way we do things. When I say disconnect, I think you guys are a little bit more structured. Well, from what I see, there's a bit more of a structure in terms of your org chart that you would have typically in a workplace compared to a lot of ours. And you might have the owner who is also an operator. So you've got an owner operator, like you said, and you might have 4 techs underneath him, and he's literally doing everything. He's answering the phones, he's doing the bookings, he's ordering the parts, he's asking the techs how they're going, he's also doing work. So we've sort of structured things a little bit differently. Typically, in the way that you guys would see, you'd have a service advisor, and then you'd have what you're doing, which I would consider a workshop controller, and then you got your techs. So you're the facilitator, I suppose you'd say, wouldn't you? The expediter, the facilitator.
And so what role do you take in the shop?
I don't even know.
Hey, listen, I've not been in a couple months. I don't know.
I actually don't know what I do these days. Very similar to David. I'm more a YouTube guy these days.
Extraordinary. Sending videos all day.
Not entirely true. I have assumed the role. We are a little bit short-staffed at the moment, so I have assumed the role of the workshop controller at one of the workshops. But when we had enough staff on, I was overseeing both operations, so I wasn't very hands-on at all. I was more making sure that we had we had 10 staff at the time across both shops, and I was making sure that all the back end was being taken care of, and I was overseeing and making sure I was providing support to the guys running the shops. But now I'm sort of back into the workshop controller role. So like the expediter, I suppose you'd say.
Right.
At one of the workshops. The other shop just runs standalone. They've got a full team. We're just a little bit short-staffed at one of the shops.
And how big are your shops? Let me ask you that.
So both shops are very similar in size. They've both got 4 hoists or 4 racks, as you might say.
Okay.
One of the workshops, the one in the inner west or the inner city, has no parking, so it's all street parking, and it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to get. So
you'll find that's a common trait in Australia. We don't have parking in a lot of these workshops.
There's not much space. So despite the fact that the country's 5 times the size of the US, only 1/10 is used, so because the rest is unusable. You could die getting eaten by a snake. Or what you got to watch out for is the drop bears as well. The drop bears are massive.
The what?
The drop
koalas.
They're like koala bears with massive claws, and they hang from the trees, and they... No, that's complete bullshit.
He's made that up. Yeah,
I was about to Google it. I have no idea. You guys have some weird animals down there. I don't know what kind of nonsense you got going on.
Listen, David has almost been killed by a mosquito and a horsefly. I mean, I would hate to see a drop bear go.
I said to a traveller once that they were asking me about the airport or whatever. So I said, "Yeah, did you see the kangaroos?" And they said, "No." I said, "No, there's guys. You probably didn't see them because there's guys they employ called shooers, and they shoo away all the kangaroos with a broom off the runway." So. So
David, we found you a new job.
Be awesome.
Be a shoer.
Chasing away.
That was like, do you have a recording of that? Is it on YouTube? Yeah.
I know. Listen, he just told me that the doctor told him he needed at least 30 minutes of cardio a week or he was going to die. So there's his cardio.
No, so look, one of the shops has 4 bays or 4 racks, 1 bay and a reception, and then we're looking for on-street parking all the time. The other shop is lucky enough that it's got a car park attached to it, which has 6 cars that we can park, and then there's also separate reception, 4 racks or 4 hoists, and separate lunchroom, and we've built a mezzanine with the office that I'm sitting in at the moment. So both relatively well laid out. Just one of them is difficult to use purely because of the infrastructure, the parking scenario, which we're
how far are they from each other?
So as the crow flies, you'd probably say it's about 13 kilometres, but driving from one end of Sydney to the other,
oh my
God. Yeah. So if I was to drive from one shop to the other, it would take an hour.
Got to be an hour. Wow. Got to be an hour. So, and my workshop's literally in between both these shops, literally right in the middle, right? It's probably exactly in the middle.
Yeah.
But then it will still take me 45 minutes to drive down to his workshop. Yeah.
So
now, do you own a shop too, or are you a tech?
No, I own a workshop as well. I actually owned a big burger shop.
You would have known that. I was paying
well,
attention.
I want to dig into his story now. I'm curious now.
So I
want to make sure he wasn't a shoer, David.
I was a shoer in my past life. Yeah, that's right. Got really good at it and got rid of them all, so now I had to find a new job. So I had a workshop in Mascot, which is we land, so it's like Mascot Airport is like Sydney Airport, which is about, 3 5Ks out of the heart of the city. We actually sold that because in that area there's a lot of redevelopment and everything's now a sky-rise apartment block. So we got bored out of that about 2 years ago. And in the interim, we found just a little workshop called Brighton. It's like literally in between these two shops. We're about 8 kilometres out of the CBD. And man, we've got jack shit parking. We've got nothing. We've got 2 hoists. Infrastructure's pretty shit. But we are working on a bigger solution right now. But we've got 2 hoists.
2 hoists?
Yeah. We've got 2 car spots. Street parking all around us is an hour maximum parking. That's got a very, very proactive ranger that walks around and finds all the cars if you leave them outside for too long. We're very, very strict on that. Yeah, well, where we were before in Mascot, parking was always a problem, but we had a pretty good ranger that, he came and used our lunchroom and our coffee room, and he'd come and hang out, watch movies all day in our office. So as long as we had a job card on the window, all good. He wouldn't book anything, right? But this person is not the same type of person. So we have to be super strict with our workflow. We have to be super strict with, by appointment only. If it's not a booking, well, when would you like to book it? And we're not shy in sending them to fellow workshops. Like if we're getting absolutely smashed and these guys need a solution, the customer needs a solution ASAP. This is where I think our network, the garage, works really well, where I've got zero problem saying, hey, look, we can't give you a solution for the next week or 2. We just can't do it. But, Jimmy down the road can, Pete's this way, he can as well. Here's some solutions for you guys. Reach out, see if they've got availability. I'm absolutely not adverse to that. And I've found customers always come back because you've given them the solution. Like, I've worked it out for you guys. And, if you could take it, we would, but just it's pretty limited on that.
We're so competitive here in the US that would not fly. And the only reason horrible. You would do that is because they're working on something you don't want to touch. So if they bring me some like really old Mercedes, I'm not touching that. And so I'm sending it to the guy down the street who's willing to work on it. But that's the only reason why. If I work on it, I'm taking it. That's mine. And even if I did send them somebody, they're going to keep that customer. So they're going to work actively to like, hey, come back here. Oh, don't go back over there. They already sent you to us. We know what we're doing. We don't work too nicely with each other.
Nothing.
Really? I try to locally here. I try to send stuff to other shops. Right. And it can be hard, right? Because some of the shops aren't quality enough to be able to do that and trust that your clients are getting a good product. The shops that I do send people to, I think we have a decent working relationship with most of them. But David's right. I mean, I have heard horror stories of somebody trying to be kind and send somebody over like, hey, we're too busy. Can you take this? And then the next thing you know, they're talking trash about your work. They're throwing you under the bus. It's one thing after another. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things we want to fix here is like, let's stop talking trash about each other. And it's odd because, and I don't know enough about y'all's background to it sounds like you were both kind of techs in one way or another. But, one of the things that we keep seeing here is that there is a clear line between someone that has the owner perspective and someone that has the technician perspective. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of techs who are saying, I can't believe they're charging that to test your car. I could do that. And then they're going in there moonlighting. They're going after hours and they're working on cars. Right. And they're saying, oh, I can't believe such and such did this. That's a terrible job. And so it's this culture of throwing each other under the bus. Right. And the problem being is that we can't make the industry better. Right? Like we can't make sure they're paid what they need to be paid if they're out here telling everybody, oh, they're ripping you off. They're charging you too much. Right? They become toxic because the shop's charging what they're charging. And you can see the line in the sand because they don't understand what it takes to run a business. Right? I'm not saying that they're not great people. I'm not saying that they aren't intelligent. I'm just saying they don't have the perspective of the business owner. They don't understand how much money it takes to run a repair shop.
Yeah, there is a bit of a divide.
Yeah, you know what? Customers love it. Customers love to drag you into that conversation. You know, we have some customers that will. We made a very, very clear rule. Oh man, I'm going to say 10 years ago that we're just going to be fact tellers. We're not going to get involved in. Hey, did this? I was the last guy. Don't know, I wasn't there. That's it. Sorry, mate. I can't tell you if it was the last person. Which in your head you're thinking, fuck, this guy should have changed that seal. Seriously, man.
Yeah.
But that
yeah. Exactly.
No, like you don't know the full context. This is your side of the story. What's happened? You can't show me any paperwork. What's happened? I'm just going to tell you what I can see. If you think it's a warranty job, you go back to him and speak to him. We don't get involved. Yeah. And the only time that I've ever gotten involved is when I've seen a job that is 100% that this should have been done right. But I'll call the shop and say, hey guys, I'm sending this guy back. He doesn't know I've actually called you. I've seen your service sticker on there. I'm just giving you a call. I've done that a couple of times. It hasn't always gone down well. It's like, no, I'm just letting you know he's going to come back and see you. I haven't actually even told him I'm calling you. I just saw your service sticker on there.
Yeah. Be
prepared for that conversation. So do what you've got to do. That gets met with either, oh, thanks, mate, or gets met with go fuck yourself. So either way, whatever. I feel like I've done what I've done is right. So, but look, biggest pet peeve, the guy down the road trying to talk down the other guy down the road to make themselves look. I think that's such a toxic trait. It's so bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'll never forget. I had a situation one time where I had another shop that had quoted work away from us, right? And we had done this job. It was something that it required multiple thermostats, right? And this other shop clearly had quoted a single thermostat, right? And the guy's like, hey, they're going to do it for this. And so I called the other shop and I'm like, hey, I just want you to know, I know that you're probably working off of what he's told you I said, but I know that at the price he's given, because the price is the same if I just do one thermostat, I'm concerned that you don't have all the information. I just wanted you to know about it. The dude got there and they told him that I had called. And he calls and starts like ripping me a new one. And all I was trying to do was help them, right? I was trying to help make sure that the dude's car, A, got fixed properly, whether it was here or somewhere else, and B, trying to make sure that shop didn't end up in a situation where now the car's not fixed and dude expects it fixed for free. Right? And yet they still throw me under the bus. And guess what? His car wasn't fixed. And now he's mad at me because they said I misdiagnosed it originally. Right? Like, what in the world is that? How is this even possible?
Well, there's a question for you.
No good deed.
No
good deed goes unpunished, Lucas.
Yep.
That's the saying. No good deed goes unpunished. But
now tell me, would you guys take on if the shop down the road is diagnosed, would you guys normally just repair would you take their diagnosis as a repair order or not?
No.
Not yet.
Hey, listen, let me ask you a question, Costa. If you went to a doctor and said, hey, listen, this one over here told me I've got prostate cancer. Can you go in there and take that stuff out? Would you, if he said yes, would you go to
Absolutely
him?
Not.
I'm just curious. Would you do
Absolutely
that?
Not.
I'd rather him check it out again.
Yeah, but Pete, you like that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, David goes from doctor to doctor.
Pete just goes doctor to doctor to doctor. It's like, so I'm sure it's okay, but can you just check again? Yeah.
I just need to make sure.
Like, use the other finger this time.
Yeah, Pete, third time this week. Yes, just check again.
Oh my God. The last time David went for that, he came in, he was super upset, and he said, man, both of his hands were on my shoulders. I'm like, dude.
That's
terrible.
Funny reel. The guy's like, and I was showing that to my staff. The guy's like, hey, relax. And the hand's like, hey, hold still. And he's like, hold still, I said. And the guy's like, oh.
Well, you can tell this is a podcast about automotive repair.
This is fantastic. So there are some Americans without humor. That's great.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's the Canadians that don't have humor, buddy, okay? The Canadians are straight without.
Did you look at the Facebook? I said, hey, we're going international. And I asked, sound off where you're from. And there were some people from Australia. There's some people from the UK. Ireland, but it was like 90% Canadian. other than US, obviously, like it was 90% Canadians. You just pissed all those people off, Lucas.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, listen, I'm only talking about one of them. It's Jeff.
Poor Jeff.
Poor Jeff.
Anyway,
No, we do. There is a bit of a following I suppose from our immediate network anyway to your particular network. I do know that there's quite a few guys that we know that follow your stuff, and it's typically
That's awesome.
typically the business owner rather than the technician that I've noticed follow you guys. So most of our following on the Garage Network is actually business owner. And what's the split cost? Well, let's call it 70-30.
It's about 70-30 last sort of semi-count. Yeah.
Yeah, and most of the guys that we know that are actively business owners on our network actually follow yours. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's
awesome.
fantastic,
Cool.
man.
Pretty cool.
That is great.
Yeah. And
so you guys
the
need
funny
to
thing
spread
is, like,
out. That's the problem. So that's the narrative you guys need to push out. See, here in the U.S., we farm our deserts. In California, which is on the West Coast, they pump water into the desert so they can then farm the desert.
Yeah,
It's the most insane thing. You guys leave the desert alone. Like, there's some crazy animals out there. We're just going to leave it. It's all desert. Let's just pack into these corners of this country by the water, but not here in the U.S. Here in the U.S., it's wide open. And so they're like, hey, here's a flat piece of land. Let's either build a factory or a farm. We don't have any water. It doesn't matter. We'll pump it in from some other state. That's what we do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mate,
no,
I love the. I've seen some of the some pictures of some of the shop owners that you guys have got there with the size of their land, and I'm so envious. Like, you know, they'll have 10 hoists in their shop, and it's painted floors and separate reception. The reception's not even jammed it's like its own entity, you know. And there's a massive
and there's no parking ranger.
30 cars. No parking ranger to walk around, you know.
With that concept
so
of parking ranger, that would be the end of me. That would be the like you'd find me attacking the parking ranger the first time they put a ticket on the thing.
Happens.
And, you know, it'd be a heated discussion, and then the next thing you just see this crazy shop owner came and attacked the poor parking ranger, and I just absolutely
It checks
lose
out,
it.
y'all. It would happen. It would happen. Listen, I have been on the phone with him when the police come to check in because the alarm went off. Okay, I'm going to tell you what, as a big old country boy, I would have been shot. They would have just shot me dead for talking to the law that way. I promise. I know. David just like blurst them out, you know.
The good thing is that you know a very well organized shop owner here by their location. So if they're in the Sydney region, there's every chance that they're a very well organised shop owner and they treat their work extraordinarily well. You know.
Yeah, you really got to be like.
That's crazy.
Like
That's crazy. I had never thought of that.
So Lucas, how many technicians?
I think we need to do international shop tours now.
Absolutely.
Right? Because like I'm really curious about y'all's operations versus our operations.
Oh, I guarantee you their shops
Because
look
it sounds like
everything
it's
in New York. You ever seen the shops in New York? New York City. Yeah, you see a shop in New York City. It's a tiny building. There's no parking. There's 4 lifts and there's a desk. That's the shop, and then that's it. Yeah, and out of that shop, they're doing $2 million. And you're like,
yeah,
how the hell does that happen?
Look, that's a lot of the senior ones. Don't get us wrong. And we have this conversation so many times with our members. Like we got guys like all around Australia, and the guy that we speak to often is a guy from Dartburg, a little country town. Not even little anymore. We used to be a little country town. And they've got, 500 square meter workshop, which I don't know what that is in foot times 2.5, with an adjoined 1,000 square meter. So again, times 2.5, car park attached to it, which, absolute polished floors, brake metery things that you drive over, the whole shebang, and busy as. And so, and their hurdles are things like, we can't do ADAS cows because there's no street signs. The street signs are not to regulation where Dynamics won't pick them up, But then ours is, well, we can't actually do an 80-kilometer test drive. We can't do it. We can't hit, we can't do 60 miles to test a vibration. That's a common thing.
That's crazy.
Like when I had the one in Mascot, especially because it's quite dense in population, but also near the airport, so traffic is insane. If I ever wanted to do a high-speed road test, it had to be 9 p.m. at night, so I would have to go home, have dinner and then come back and do it at night, or super early at like 6 a.m. Anything else in between, you're not going to be able to go any faster than 60 kilometers an hour. And that's hooning it. Like that's been borderline dangerous in those areas. So different hurdles for different people. It's real. It is real.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, this country's so diverse, and it sounds like you guys are too. That we're in the same situation. So he's on top of a mountain, and the roads there, he's taking pictures of it, are just nuts. Where I'm in the Midwest, so it's flat, and for the most part, and wide open. So roads are all straight and flat, and hitting 90 is not a miles an hour. That is, so really fast in kilometers per hour. Is not a problem.
It is. Yeah, I'm extraordinarily confused by your systems, mate. I'll tell you that much. Like your Imperial 7/8.
Who even uses him?
Quarter of an inch.
Oh God! Oh God!
How about you just
please
say
don't
1
listen.
millimeter, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters?
Or 100 degrees.
The grandpa.
100 degrees. That's really hot.
The grandpa of ASOG, okay, has a real problem with the metric system.
Really?
I'm going to let y'all talk. If I can find it, I will play it for you.
Please do.
But I'm just
Crazy
warning
old man
you,
ranting about
we're all
nothing.
going to get hate mail.
It's crazy old man ranting about nothing. The metric system does make sense, but in America, we just make up whatever the hell we want.
We can do what we want.
Because when I started as a tech, you had to have standard and metric tools, so you had to have a 7/8, and that's what. So you would buy these.
With a passion that is not seen in this part of the country for a really long time. Let it go.
Nobody can hear that.
Next time a country lands something on the moon using metric, let me know. We use America.
He pulls out the moon landing. He's like, we landed on the moon using this Imperial. We win.
What you don't know is he stands up, he takes his pistol out, he slams his pistol down on the table
really
in his
bad.
training class. And he's like, we don't do that here. Oh my God.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Very passionate. Passionate.
I might actually do later on. I might post a little video of a walk around of our shop, of the one
That would be awesome.
I'm podcasting from. So it's a Saturday here, and we only operate a 5-day week, so Monday to Friday. So it's a Saturday. So we've got all our cars out for the week. So I've got an empty car park and an empty shop. So I'll do a walk around. Show
That
you
would be
guys
awesome,
what it's
dude.
like, where we are. I'll take a video of the ginormous 700 odd unit block that's opposite us, so you can sort of get an idea of how dense it is. And then what I might do is I
got to be concerned when you said I'm going to take a video of the ginormous, and then you went dense, and I was like, oh, where's he going? Where's he? Please don't do this so quickly.
Mine
Please
down to the gutter cutter.
They're still recording. Please stop.
And what I'll do, I'll take a video of the shop that's actually in the inner west as well, so then you can see the proximity to the Harbour Bridge and the fact that we have bugger all parking there as well. So
that would be awesome.
Yeah, because you guys,
and I think that'll start a really awesome discussion.
Well, I think. I mean, I certainly look at your shops there and pictures of when people post, and I think these guys take it for granted a little bit their space,
Most of them do, but if you interact with a few guys from New York City, that's what they deal with. The exact same thing you guys do, and I don't know how they operate. It's nuts, and the amount of regulation, and they've got something like a parking ranger there too. They've got the state like right on top of them, checking absolutely every little nuance of their business, and a lot of them just operate under the radar. It's all black market there. Okay. It's all black market.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, right. So we New South Wales. So obviously we got 5 states, 6 states. That's horrible. I don't remember. Some of them don't count. It doesn't matter. So we. I'm not going to say which ones because then we'll get flagged.
Tasmania. But that's
yeah, don't want to say it. So with New South Wales and one of the state, I want to say it's WA, you do have to be licensed and qualified and all that sort of jazz to run a workshop or even be a mechanic. You've got to be employed. You have to go through the apprenticeship program. You have to get qualified. You have to have that process happen. Then you also have to have business license, all that jazz. But then you go into some of the other states because it's not a federally run program and it's pretty wild. Like there'll be like a guy that is advertising shoe repairs and tires. Like, fuck. Like it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Like, but yeah, like you were saying earlier, they just decide that, you know what, I've done a service before. I can fix cars, and they're allowing it to just go on. Then again, you're trying to fight these
what we
guys
found though, so here in the U.S. it's the same thing. Like you go up to Michigan, which is up north. And you have to be certified. You have to have certified mechanics. The shop's got to be certified, and it's got a state board. And they come in, but the problem is that it hasn't fixed anything. So the quality of repairs isn't any better. The technicians aren't getting paid any better. The conditions aren't any better there. The cars aren't any safer. The cars are just as janky up there as they are down here. And so here it's wide open. In my state, it's wide open. You can just, like I said, you just open up one day, post on Facebook that you're a shop, and now you're a shop, and that's it. And the only thing you can get in trouble is, with taxes. That's about it.
And have you guys got annual roadworthy inspections for your vehicles there?
We do in North Carolina. Listen. Did the wheels fall off when you pulled it into the shop?
No, you're roadworthy.
Can we charge them any money for something? And that's pretty much the extent of it, right?
That's wild. Yeah, we've got in New South Wales. There's annual roadworthy inspections, so most of the cars are inspected thoroughly and need to be roadworthy. But there are a few states that don't have those regulations, and when you go there for holiday, or vacation, you see some vehicles driving around that just should not be on the road. Yeah.
How much do they charge for those? Because, for instance, the state safety inspection here's $13.60 is the most you can charge.
$43,
right?
So how long does it? And what's the requirement? Is it you're required
to
road test?
If you did it by the book, it would take you 20 or 30 minutes. But most people, because it is what it is, they just pull it in. Yep, lights work, horn works, goods, ship it. Right?
It's only $13, isn't it? So. Yeah, we've got our
and $6 of that or something like that's the sticker. 91 cents of that's the sticker. Wow. So
we've got our roadworthy inspections are $42 and
43. They've gone up. Pete, 43.
Sorry, they've gone up, and they typically take if you're going to do one correctly about 20 minutes. So my sort of protocol is you road test the vehicle and you're brake testing it, then you're bringing it in, you're checking all the lights, horn. Handbrake, hoisting it, checking the front end, making sure that nothing's
leaks
untoward in the front end, no oil leaks, everything's okay, no rust in the chassis. Most of them are floor pan anyway, and away you go. But typically, it's a 20-minute sort of turnaround.
Yeah,
you're doing it correctly.
Now, how do you pay your technicians on that?
So we pay our technicians. So all of our technicians are salary package. So I suppose you. It's very similar to yours.
Yeah.
So we sort of go on car count and average repair order as well. So we're trying to sort of monitor our metrics like that and keep our wages to a certain. So typically, I like to keep my wages to under about 25% of my turnover. So that's how we're sort of monitoring our metrics in particular. But our techs get paid. If we had zero work in the door, they still get paid for the day.
They're going to get, amen, buddy.
But if there's a lot of work, then they pull their finger out and they do the right thing as well. And that's the culture that we're bred in as well. And I think doing the flat rate that you guys have? I think doing the flat rate sort of, like you said, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because you could get guys that are trying to cut corners to up their times, and then if there's no work, they don't get paid, do they? So so the next job that they take on, they're trying to make up that shortfall.
Yeah. And it's always a push just to pay the bills.
We have the exact opposite. So in my state, there's no safety inspection, but I'm on the board of another state, and that state does have safety inspections. And let me tell you, the cars are not any safer. They are just as clapped out. And the problem is, you think, well, everybody has to get them safety checks. Like, dude, they just go to the guy down the street who wink, wink, nod, nod, hooks them up. and the car always passes. Now that guy will get shut down, but so what? Like, he doesn't care. He'll close up and open up somewhere down the street, and all of a sudden he's doing the same thing again under his wife's name this time, and they're operating a similar business and just handing out stickers. So it's there's no way around it. It's, if the person wants to fix the car, they want to make sure it's safe, then they'll show up to a good reputable shop and they'll make sure the vehicle's being inspected, and they'll do the right thing. If the person's like, I don't care, as long as it starts and drives, that's it, and the wheels are wobbling down the road and everything is like smoking, they don't care. They still won't care.
And you know, you brought up a really important point earlier, is that most of the time nothing happens, right? Unfortunately, it only takes somebody losing a child. It only takes somebody losing a husband or a wife. It only takes somebody losing a parent
100%.
for somebody to give a damn.
Who got that?
Right? And that's screwed up. But I mean, that's the honest to God truth, because most of the time, nobody ever pays the price for that. It's except that one time that they do, you know?
Like we what people are saying about our inspections, like, don't get me wrong, it's absolutely flawed. Like, you will go on Facebook Marketplace and there's guys, you know, for $200, I'll pass anything. You go on there, they're on there, and you know, send us a photo of your paperwork, and we, because it's all electronic now, so we just send it through for you. You know, that sort of shit happens. But like I told some of my customers, like, yeah, look, you may not give a shit about your tires being worn or your brake lines leaking, but you know what? My mum drives on the same road as you guys. My sister drives on the same road as you guys.
Absolutely.
Mate, there's kids, there's schools around. Just because you're, I almost said the C word. Just because you're tight, just because you're tight, doesn't mean that, you know, you should put people's life at risk. Like, that's your decision you've made. You can risk your life. That's fine. It's not their fault, you know.
Amen. 100%.
We get frustrated.
100%.
Your issues might be the same as ours, and we could fail a registration inspection or a roadworthy inspection for whatever reason, and then see that vehicle the following day driving down the street because they've taken it to John down the road, and John down the road's passed it. So there needs to be some uniformity as well around if I'm failing it, I'm failing it for a reason, and there's multiple reasons that I'm failing it. It could be that I find it unroadworthy, and you know, it could be that I feel that that's not quite right, and I don't want that car on the road. But John down the road's got to have the same ethos as me as well.
Inspector discretion.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So, yeah, and we inspected one recently, and the tie rod was really, really loose. There was excessive movement in the tie rod, and I found that car on the road the following afternoon passed. You know, it was really bad.
That's crazy.
So, who's inspecting these things? Are they looking at them, or are they just passing them, tick and flick? You know, like done.
Well, look, I think the problem is because the cost is so low. I guarantee if that was a $235 inspection, you don't want to lose that license. You want to make sure you're doing them. So I'll guarantee you if that was a $200-300 inspection, and you would allocate that half hour for it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
At $43, which is your money, what, $25 roughly. Like, to do them properly, we do it because it's a value add for our customers. No other reason. It's not a moneymaker.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's not a moneymaker, but I will contend that it is guaranteed car count.
It is guaranteed
if you
car
have
count.
100%. If it's availability. The states that have state inspections, I see fewer shops struggling for cars than the states that don't. Here in Kansas, we don't have any kind of anything. So if I got a car, it's because I had to work at it through marketing to get the car in the door, and they have to pick me specifically because they can go across the border and go to a Missouri shop if they want, or they can pick one of the 18 shops that are around me to go to. I've got to work really hard to outpace all those and get the car in to me, but I may never see that customer again. And so now it's a remarketing effort. I've got to go back and make sure I can stay in front of that specific customer to get them come back in a second, a third time, showing them the value in having the vehicle inspected on a regular basis to make sure the vehicle is safe and sound. So you end up having to appeal to those people that do want to make sure that the vehicle is safe. I don't get any guaranteed anything where the places that have those inspections, like, yeah, that's great. You will always have somebody calling you about a car, even if it's just to do a state inspection.
Yep.
That's just an opportunity. Here, they give away oil changes for that. So you're doing an oil change to get the car in the door, to be able to inspect it, to then be able to sell ball joints and bearings or whatever else. They're giving away oil changes for $15, $20, $25.
Like a loss leader to get them in.
Yeah, because they know like that's going to get the cars in the door. Everybody's going to show up, and so then I can sell the work. And places that have state inspections have a little leg up on that.
You know what? You're not wrong at all. Like we do win. In reality, with the most reasonable people, you win you can win a fair bit of work out of them. Obviously, the rules are pretty rigid. One of the rules is you can't profiteer from inspection, so you got to make sure that it's whatever you're repairing is something that has to be done. And that's probably the only thing that the government really is strict. If someone complains and they believe you've done the wrong thing, you're in trouble.
DVI should fix that, though. You guys have DVIs, right? Digital vehicles?
Digital videos. So we do photos. Believe it or not, DVIs aren't a very common thing in Australia. Not many workshops do them. We do a lot of documentation photos that get sent out to customers, not through a program, but just through our invoicing program that we have. But definitely DVIs might have to be a thing that we're going to look into as well.
That was
we were talking about this yesterday.
We had a big team meeting yesterday among both the shops, and we did a bit of a strategy session, and that was one of the things that got brought up because, David, it's not very popular here at all, and only very few dealers are actually using that as well, even here. So that could be something that could be a point of difference. But I definitely think you're right. The car count for a shop that does the roadworthy inspections is obviously going to be higher, and there is a chance that you win some work. We've in the past actually won a fair bit of service work off the back end of a roadworthy inspection, just saying, hey, Jan, car's past roadworthy. Just to let you know, though, front and rear brakes are getting a little bit low, and I do notice it's overdue for service. Oh, didn't realise. Can you please book me in?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
So, and if you're doing the right thing, then hopefully they remain a customer long term.
That's the intent.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome, guys.
Yes, sir.
This was fun.